Okay, I'm going to knock something down. I'm not allowed to touch anything. I always forget. Okay, so I do have my chat now. That was so weird. Dang it. So I have the live chat. I had started a live a couple minutes ago and there was no chat at all. It was just completely blank. It didn't say live chat. It didn't say top chat. It said nothing. And it was just making me very uncomfortable because I didn't know what the F was going on. So I'm starting over, just like in real life, starting over. So I'll give people a couple minutes to get here. I'll just do the regular stuff. Please hit that like button. I beg you. Turn on your notification bell to ring so you know when I'm going live. Share a video of mine with somebody that you think might like my channel. And make sure you're still subscribed if you are subscribed. If you're not, please consider doing so. Everything I say is simply my opinion for the sake of hoping to start a conversation, open up a discussion. I'm always trying to learn something, and I just think learning is fun and it's empowering, and there's so much to learn. So I am going to, why don't I just get started with reading this article about, is it called Zorro? The Little E Ranch in New Mexico? I think I'll just go ahead and start reading. All right. A journey through the land of enchantment, where the now deceased Rex trafficker and his co-conspirators found a haven for radioactive secrets. Okay. This article is, oh, that's funny. It's written by Matt Farwell, but I'm sure that's not the Matt Farwell that's going to trial for unaliving Sandra Birchmore. They're in Canton, Massachusetts. Anyway, Matt Farwell, it's written in 2019. So this is a few years old. And where should I start? Zorro Ranch. Here we go. The world's first nuclear weapon, codename Gadget, was detonated in New Mexico, July 16, 1945. Tourists can now visit the Trinity site on the U.S. Army's White Sands Missile Range to view the epicenter of a highly secret government conspiracy involving top physicists called the Manhattan Project. We've all heard of that, right? Yes. Trinity is a 111-mile straight line from Zorro Ranch. Consider what lies within this way. Find a map, make Little E's New Mexico operation the center, put the Trinity site at the edge of its radius. What else is secret and radioactive and inside that circle? Did New Mexico's other secrets throw off enough chafe to keep Little E off the radar? Last month, I went to New Mexico to see what secrets I could find within the circle. Santa Fe, 23 miles away from Zorro as the crow flies, is the oldest colonial capital city in North America. One with a twisted history. The historic center of the small city in the foothills of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains is the Plaza, an open-air park with a Haagen-Dazs at one corner. This was once a drugstore, Zook's Pharmacy, that doubled as a base for Russian espionage. Cray-cray. In between filling prescriptions and ringing up customers, deep cover Stalinist spies here plotted the end of Leon Trotsky and later coordinated efforts to steal the secrets of the atomic bomb from Los Alamos, distance from Zorro Ranch 50 miles. There are dozens of other strange things in that circle. There's the hammer, Armand. Yeah, I think it's Armand Hammer United World College of the American West, a selective international boarding school in Montezuma founded by Armand Hammer and Prince Charles. Originally a resort hotel built on a hot springs sacred to the Jacarla Apache, the previous inhabitants of the Sangre de Criscos. Bill Richardson, who in recently unsealed court records was named by accuser Virginia Roberts, here we go, as a participant in Little E's illegal Rex abuse ring, claimed to be a lecturer at the United World College in 2001 to 2002, between his stints as Bill Clinton's Secretary of Energy and New Mexico's governor. Richardson only showed up once that the students were aware of to publicly hobnob with Queen Noor of Jordan and Greece's Prince Pavlos in advance of his gubernatorial run. I love that word, gubernatorial. So goobery. I was a student at AHUWC at the time. I recall that Richardson, these pages are out of order. How did that happen? I didn't do nothing. There are also sites where the Catholic Church hid pedo priests in local parishes until a tsunami of lawsuits from victims forced New Mexico's largest diocese to file for bankruptcy last June. Again, this is 2019. One of those places is in Jemez Springs, an isolated resort town in the middle of a melange of federal ranges, Pueblo nations, and national forests. Distance from Zorro Ranch, 50 miles. Here, the Catholic Church still operates one of two treatment centers in the United States for pedo priests. They are treated by fellow members of the cloth who belong to an order called the Church of Spiritual Technology, an elite order within Scientology, with hardened rooms storing Ron Hubbard's writings. Hubbard's thoughts on Thetans will survive anything, as they're reportedly inscribed on etched steel plates in titanium containers filled with inert argon gas. The location is hardly secret, since the CST's logo, two interlocking circles with diamonds, can be seen in aerial photos carved into the high desert scrub, ostensibly to help guide Hubbard's spirit back to its new body whenever that happens. Once Hubbard adopts a new body, he's expected to make his way to one of his CST bases. A Trementia base insider told the Village Voice in 2012. That's where he's supposed to be raised and to be taken care of. If you're rich, powerful, and committed to doing something strange and opaque, New Mexico beacons, as it did for Little E a quarter of a century ago. Oh, hey, Fred Field. No notification. Well, as long as there's sound. Yeah, I had trouble with my first stream, so I had to start a second. There was sound, but there was no chat. How are you today, sir? Nice to see you. Let's see. On February 22nd, 1993, as Whitney Houston's I Will Always Love You topped the domestic charts, a New Mexico state land office granted an agricultural land lease near the unincorporated community of Stanley to the Zorro Trust. The trust was a shell company for Little E, whose address of record at the time was 457 Madison Avenue, which today also houses the headquarters of the Trunk Club personal shopping service. On that same day, the Zorro Trust completed a purchase of lands owned by members of the King family, a powerful New Mexico agricultural and political dynasty. Zorro's deal included rights to the king's leases on public lands, a total of 1,159 acres, rented for $872.22 a year. That's a nice deal. The largest private landowners in New Mexico are either outside billionaires or family dynasties. Very often, we will just be a wealthy landowner's way of consolidating their holdings. Stephanie Garcia Richard, the New Mexico Land Commissioner, told me. Let's see. It's missing a little bit, but there's something about the annual cost for leasing land from New Mexico with fees is $889.50. So that brings it up another $17 plus a 2% interest fee. The next year, Little E sought approval to construct a grass strip runway for a private plane on New Mexico state land within his lease. But when the state wanted to send inspectors out to the site of the proposed runway, the request for a permit was withdrawn, and Epstein built another runway on the private land that he owned outright. In 2004, a variance from the state, and I've got a suspicion around that. Mrs. Amir, hello, hello. And Anna Bees, it's all of us. Look at us. I was with you on the previous live. Well, thank you, Mrs. Amir. That was weird that I couldn't see the chat. It's never been like that, where it didn't even say live chat or top chat. It just was completely black. Nice to see you guys. Thanks for being here. So yeah, I have a suspicion about what I just read that I'll share with you. Should I make you wait to the end, or should I just slide in the idea right now? About Epstein built another runway on the private land that he owned outright. So my belief is that he was hiding something on the property that he didn't want to risk any officials finding. And what that something is, I'll just say it. Are you ready? Everything I say is simply my opinion for the sake of hoping to start a conversation, open up a discussion, learn something. All my videos are made for YouTube. It's an infotainment platform. So I'm thinking that he already had young women there and was already started his baby farm. That's what I'm thinking. This was 2019 that this was written. So yeah. That's what the Zorro Ranch was for, you guys. Did you know that? It was purchased to become a baby farm. Yeah. Big E style. Totally gross. Okay, I'm going to keep reading. In 2004, variance from the state land commissioner allowed Epstein to build a section of raised railroad track where he wanted to park an antique Santa Fe Railroad caboose in sight of the Creston petroglyphs. Nearly 5,000 catalog pictograms left behind by the original inhabitants of the Galisto Basin 600 years ago. So I guess if you have a baby farm, then having only $2 per kid might be necessary as opposed to $30 per kid, right? If you have like 100 kids or 5,000 kids like Big E wants. Yeah. It's some cray-cray. It's some serious cray-cray. There's a lot of cray-cray right now on the brink of being set loose. And I think that certain people in office are having nervous breakdowns over this. And they're just completely throwing hissy fits left and right to try to distract everybody from Virginia Giuffre's passing away. And Little E and Ghislaine. I've been doing a lot of research on this crap, you guys. It's out of control. Maxwell is definitely trying to get pardoned, and she probably will. I hate to say that. I hope I'm proven wrong, but she just has too much dirt on too many dignitaries. Way too much dirt on way too many dignitaries. It's amazing that she got prosecuted to begin with, really, unfortunately. that Alex Acosta, he did everything in his power to try to protect everybody, not just little E, when he did his junk plea agreement, the sweetheart of a deal with the 2008 case. He literally tried to grant immunity for everybody involved with Epstein. It is written into the court papers. Fortunately, they only allowed that to go as far as Florida. And he never got reprimanded. He was only like publicly shamed. He never got any kind of like professional, disbarring or suspension or anything like that. It's ridiculous. It was just said that he had poor judgment. It was said on the record that he had poor judgment. That was as far as it went. And he was forced to resign from the first cabinet of Little T. Anyways, Zorro wasn't Epstein's only New Mexico investment. Besides alleged illicit assaults and Rex trafficking to the rich and powerful, he had other interests like eugenics, you guys, cryogenics, and theoretical physics. New Mexico filled those needs nicely. Groundbreaking work on all three fields has been done in New Mexico since the Manhattan Project. After World War II, the United States imported Nazi war criminals to help run the fledgling space program, including in New Mexico, where their prior skills in rocketry and ghastly human experiments could help the United States retain the edge over the communists. It seems Epstein, a canny investor, saw value in both the physical and human terrain of New Mexico. So let me add a thought here too about the rocketry and the ghastly human experiments with the eugenics. Tying that all together, I've wondered if that hasn't been one of the goals, and hopefully it's not happening already, with like the prison in El Salvador and Gitmo Bay, right? And now they're starting one up in Rwanda. Yeah, last week Donnie made a deal with Rwanda for just like $100,000 to start sending prisoners to Rwanda. Crazy. I mentioned it in one of my videos if you missed it. Okay, he pumped more than $250,000 into the Santa Fe Institute, SFI, a think tank for theoretical researchers, where he befriended a co-founder. And did you know Maxwell was married to somebody not Epstein? I'll tell you who in a minute. Okay, I'm going to finish this article. Befriended co-founder and quark theory pioneer Murray Gell-Mann. Cormac McCarthy is one trustee of the Santa Fe Institute. Pierre Omidyar is another. When I called a well-connected Santa Fe lawyer, the attorney told me to look at the Institute, and I asked what I knew of Gell-Mann's reputation around town, Not much, I admitted, and went to find out. When these men describe little E, Vanity Fair wrote of the men from letters that little E collected, they talk about energy and curiosity, as well as a love for theoretical physics that they don't ordinarily find in laymen. Gell-Mann rather sweetly mentions that there are always pretty ladies around when he goes to dinner with little E. Both parties corrupt. That proves it. Absolutely, Anna Bees. Little T wants to open up Alcatraz. Right. He's just throwing spaghetti at the wall, I think. I mean, plus he's like a 5-year-old. So yeah, doesn't every 5-year-old want to open up Alcatraz? But I think he's just literally clowning around, trying to distract everybody from looking behind the curtain with Virginia Giuffre. That's what I think. And I think it has a lot to do with Prince Andrew, with himself, and with some other mucky mucks. Like, who knows how many people in the current administration and cabinet are on those videotapes, or the daddy Puff Daddy videotapes, right? That's in court right now, going through trial. When I drove out to the Institute to ask about its connections, no one bothered me as I wandered around. SFI up is up in the hills above Santa Fe with beautiful views and a campus that seems like a graduate school building at an expensive university. Open spaces and industrial lighting, whiteboards and hardwood furniture. Eventually, a spokeswoman provided me with a statement that, contrary to certain statements in Little E's bios, he was not actively involved at SFI other than as an infrequent donor. See, he would use these universities as hunting grounds, him and Maxwell, and then the universities would try to distance themselves and say that they were never aware of any such thing going on. But he was donating. So they said infrequent donor. Well, if he was donating millions of dollars infrequently, that's still a lot of money. And basically, he was buying their silence. And then if he could invite them to a party and get them to partake in the action and get it on videotape, then it was a done deal. But this is how he really made his money, you guys, was the blackmail. That's how he really rolled in the billions, in my humble conspiracy theory opinion, allegedly. Okay. The Institute had rejected any funding from Epstein after 2010. And then they could not be reached for comment. He preceded Little E in dying last May at the age of 89. This Gelman did. Interesting, huh? Let's see. The first interplanetary festival last year. That's an interesting idea, huh? The fin of the rocket ship reads 9EX, but from a distance it looks like SEX. So mature, so grown up. Our facilities crew drives it back and forth on the Chevy truck, part of the exhibit, which has a hydraulic system under the hood for changing the rocket's angle of inclination. Jenna Marshall, Santa Fe Institute spokeswoman, explained to me. Perhaps the hydraulic lift will lower the 9EX rocket ship 45 degrees to half mast. That sounds kind of perverted too, doesn't it? Gene Peach, a Santa Fe photographer, has had an eye on Zorro since the late 90s, he tells me. After the news of Little E's arrest broke, Peach spoke with several Stanley area ranchers, none of whom ever saw Epstein or had any idea on what went on at his ranch. And this was written right after he passed away. Locals said that they would know when the Little E crowd is at the ranch because the mansion lights drone out the stars, Peach explains. No small feat in that part of New Mexico. Some thought Little E owned Victoria's Secret because of the caravans of glamorous women who would show up at the ranch's double gate off Highway 41. So Victoria's Secret has been owned by Leslie Wexner for a long time, who you could say that Epstein was Leslie's protege and maybe lover, in my humble conspiracy theory opinion, allegedly. Okay. Peach reports that the locals always had mixed feelings about their furtive big city neighbor. Little E's property taxes were a blessing to the community and won't soon be replaced, he said. There are many big ranches, but no other 50,000 square foot mansions. 50,000 square feet. Well, you might need that much if you had one or 200 baby mamas, right? Well, there's Tom Ford's nearby seven-figure ranch, but that has yet to find a new buyer. Stephanie Garcia Richard, the state land commissioner, has been among the most proactive public servants in her response to the revelations about Little E's illegal activities, even before Little E's arrest in New York. As soon as she heard about Virginia Roberts Gouffre's accusations, complete with pictures of Gouffre posing in snow in front of Zorro Ranch, Richard instructed her staff to pull every relevant document, deed, and scrap of Epstein correspondence from the files and deliver it to Attorney General Hector Balderas, one of only a few New Mexico government officials. So Maria Farmer was also assaulted. She's the artist that's been very outspoken, the one that survived brain cancer twice. So she was assaulted by both Maxwell and Little E in New Mexico. She was above the age of consent, but it was still an essay and without consent. But then her little sister was 16 years old, and they assaulted her in New Mexico at this ranch too when she was 16 years old. That was in 1996. Both incidences were in 1996. Both of the girls got away and reported the incidences to law enforcement and have spent much of their lives trying to reconcile and have justice, and completely expecting to get burned and burned again because they're not naive. They know how the billionaire club works. They've been on the inside. Okay. So it's a priority for the Attorney General, Matt Baca, a senior counsel in Baldera's office, told me before Little E's passing away over coffee down the street from the New Mexico Judicial Complex. This attorney general has been very focused on prosecuting Rex crimes. Baca noted that his office was delivering evidence and material on a rolling basis to the U.S. attorneys for the Southern District of New York, who were leading Little E's prosecution and are now targeting his potential co-conspirators. So potential co-conspirators, not co-conspirator, which would be Maxwell, but multiple. This was an international ring. It took more than one or two people to run it. So I think you're right, Anna says. Oh, about Alcatraz, about Donnie just trying to create news. Like, he can't stop talking, for one thing, and everything he says is news because he's president and because he's nuts and the craziest stuff comes out of his mouth. But yeah, I hope he keeps talking because he keeps telling on himself, right? Now, where was I? That coordination continues today. While Little E unaliving self is a disturbing development, Baldera's office told me, the office of the Attorney General will continue to review all allegations of criminal conduct connected to the Epstein case in New Mexico. That office has its own special anti-corruption unit. Well, it better work hard because there's a lot of corruption connected to Little E. About 20 investigators, all told, assisting in the gathering of Little E related evidence. Like the Land Commissioner's Office, the AG's team was on the case early. We've been looking at this since February or March. We're not totally reactive, Backus said, because this article was written just like a week after Little E passing away. In the 11 years since Little E's Florida conviction for prostituting a minor, New Mexico failed to ever require him to register as a Rex offender. Is that so sad? Because that was the one thing that he was required to do. You know, he got the 13 months with work release. So he got to roam around freely, basically, for much of the week, from like Friday till Wednesday. So he couldn't, he had to stay in the jail for a 24-hour stint, I think, on Thursdays. But that was only for 13 months. And then he had to register as a sex offender. But New Mexico failed to require it because, again, they liked his tax money, right? Yet it seems all the authorities have been, to some extent, passive and reactive in the Little E affair. In the 11 years since Little E's Florida conviction for prostituting a minor, New Mexico failed to ever require him to register as a Rex offender. His death has no effect on the leases he held, a state land office representative tells me, because they're owed by his holding company and will not expire until 2021. It is fair to assume that what went on at Zorro Ranch will never fully come to light. New Mexico, after all, is but one place in America where powerful people who enjoyed the use of its land in government, business, finance, religion, and science have consistently demonstrated a pattern of deception and disregard for the people that live there. Epstein's ring was large enough and existed over a long enough period of time. Got cut off. Sorry about that. That's crazy how all the pages get cut off. How annoying. That is weird. Okay. Very annoying. Well, I think you're right about everything. Oh, Annabese, you're so cute. Should we get one of those hats made? Justice was right about everything. No, because I hope that I'm not right about a lot of things, but I am right about some of the jewelry that I make. So I got to show off my newest creations. Can you see? Let's see if I can get a nice black background so you can see this kind of cool Austrian crystal and semi-precious gemstone weird earring. And then I redesigned the earrings. I redesigned this necklace. I got to take it off and show you guys because I've always loved it, but I love it even more now. I made it more better because, you know, I like to overdo things. So you might recognize this. I haven't worn it in a while, but there is some of the Austrian crystals and gemstones on there. And then this rock, I forget what it's called, if anybody knows. It's not dyed blue. It's actually blue like that. And I fell in love with it. You might remember, I think it was last summer. I was at my friend's store, and it, by itself, it wasn't even on a wire or anything. It was just one bead, and it was like $29. And I was like, I have to have that, which is crazy because I have so much jewelry, but I absolutely had to have it. I didn't even know if it was dyed or not, but I was just like, it's so pretty that even if it is dyed, that was going to be okay with me. But then I looked it up and it's not dyed. So I'm very excited about the different colors of blue and green little stones that I put there with it. Like I said, I I tweaked it when I had originally made it like the same day that I purchased it. I thought this thing's probably going to sit around for a long time before I do anything with it. I came home and made this necklace. I was that inspired. And then it was never quite right, so I just remade it actually earlier today. And then I let's see. And then I've got this cool green flower thing on that I did not make. Its brand is Pilgrim. If you're familiar with Pilgrim, they do really high quality costume jewelry. Okay. But you know, the layering of the necklaces is inspired by Kylie Rodney. We have to say her name, right? Every episode, every video. Kylie Rodney, Kylie Rodney, Kylie Rodney. I saw that both In Your Presence and Shan had both just dropped Kylie Rodney videos today. So I'll be checking those out. Oh, did you know, Anna Bees and anybody else who's listening? Did you know that in Texas, it is still apparently legal to marry a girl as young as 13 and a boy as young as 14, as long as there's a judge that consents to it? So the age of consent is technically 18, like in all the states, but a 16 or 17-year-old can get married with parental consent, but a 13-year-old girl can get married with a judge's consent, and a 14-year-old boy can get married with a judge's consent. That is freaky AF. No, I didn't know that about Texas. I just learned it today. I was like, wait until I share this with my peeps. So why do you think so many rich people have underground bunkers? Right, Anna Bees? Like, is that what Mr. Z is doing? Because he's got a huge underground bunker in Maui. And then I don't think his place in Tahoe is an underground bunker, but who knows? I think Gates has an underground bunker in Seattle, right there on Lake Washington. But I'm wondering about the Trumpster fire. I'm wondering if he has more than the 5 kids that he acknowledges. The 3 from Ivana, the one from Marla Maples, and then the one from the current Russian doll mail order bride. I do not know. So yeah, as long as you have a judge that will write a court order, a 13-year-old can get married. Isn't that happy, happy, joy, joy? Kauai, I think. I thought that Z had a place on Maui. He might have one in Kauai too, but when the Lahaina fires happened, I thought that he was right there with all of that. And I thought that that's where he had like his $50 million bunker that was still getting built. So remember the guy, this is really gross. Remember Warren's Jeff? I almost said Jeff Warren's, but it's Warren Jeffs. And his father, oh, I can't remember his father's first name, but his last name was Jeffs. Warren Jeffs was arrested and he's serving a life prison sentence for assaulting, violating a 12-year-old and a 15-year-old in the state of Texas. I almost said Florida. So he moved his ranch of wives to a range that he purchased that he called Zion Ranch in Texas. And 78 wives he had at the time of his arrest. 78 wives. And they say only like 60 children that they knew of, but that doesn't make sense. He probably had a lot more. Anyway, one of his children named Roy Jeffs, he passed away in 2019. He was 26 years old, and he was one of the first of Warren Jeff's kids to speak out about Warren Jeff's incest and violation of the children, of his own children. So Rory Jeff's allegedly self-unalived, right? So I mentioned that Ghislaine Maxwell is married. I did not know this until last night. His name is Scott Borgeson. He is an IT guy, and I think they got married in 2016. And then when she was arrested and prosecuted, let's see, she was sentenced in 2022, but I want to say that he started distancing himself from her, and she was also trying to distance herself from him to protect him in around 2020. So he's her secret husband, and I think they're still married, but I'm not sure. Scott Borgeson. He's an old friend of our president's. Isn't that sweet? It's such a small world, right? So one of the things that protects Ms. Maxwell is that she basically is a collector of secrets, and especially for dignitaries from other countries. So her father was considered a triple agent for, I think, Russia, Israeli, and the US. And then it seems as though little E followed his footsteps, and that she followed his footsteps too. So she's a collector of the secrets, right? And so not only do they make a lot of money off of the blackmail, they also make a lot of money off of illegal weapon sales and purchases. So yeah. So what I think is going on with little T is that he is just making a spectacle of himself. He's basically clowning around. I think he probably is having a nervous breakdown, and he is probably exhausted, but he probably is just running on sheer adrenaline because he knows if he trips up that the whole thing can come tumbling down. And it all makes me so sick, like literally sick to my stomach, that I have to look away from the train wreck. I can't keep staring at it. I mean, I'm sure that's healthy, right? It's like I want to know what's going on, but it's just the same old crap. It's just like insanity after insanity after insanity. It can only take so much. Oh, Lady Victoria Harvey. What a sick, sick individual. So she is Prince Andrew's ex-girlfriend who has been making the rounds, absolutely trashing Virginia Giuffre. I almost said Victoria. So Victoria Harvey, Lady Victoria Harvey, is Prince Andrew's ex-girlfriend who has definitely got a full-time job on the payroll of the royals, in my opinion. So she's making all the rounds on all the talk shows, just trashing Virginia Giuffre, where she did that like day one, pretty much after Virginia passed away. And then she said, because she got so much backlash, she said, okay, I'm not going to do this because, Virginia's a mom and she has kids. And then a couple days later, she's back in, and she just won't stop. She is absolutely disgusting. So, Ms. Maxwell's father, Robert Maxwell, the year that he passed away was 1991 in the Canary Islands. And that was pretty much what inspired her to seek out little E and try to procure him as her sugar daddy, as her hubby. And that's when she basically sold her soul to Satan, as far as I'm concerned, because she was willing to do anything that it took to get this billionaire little E to marry her, because she was in deep trouble financially. Her father was extremely wealthy, but he had completely bankrupted himself and his company, and his a couple of his sons had helped um, plunder and basically steal from the retirement accounts of Maxwell's employees. He owned the Mirror, kind of like the National Enquirer, and his sons never got prosecuted. There were charges, but they were acquitted. And yeah, he had 9 kids. So Ghislaine was the youngest of the 9, but the oldest one passed away when he was like 21. He had been in a car accident when he was 15. So that was, I think, he passed away around the same time that Ghislaine was born, around like 1966, 67, I think. And I don't have my phone to look it up to verify, but I was born in 1967, and I think that Ghislaine, she might be a year or 2 or 3 older than me, maybe the same age, but I think she's 60 right now. So that would mean that she was born in like 65. So I think that he passed away in 67, but he had been in a coma since he was 15 when he was in a really bad car accident. So when she was a baby, her older brother died. And then there was another sibling that passed away. Again, maybe I should look up how it corresponds to the son that was in the coma, because this little girl passed away when she was 3, and she passed away from leukemia. That's really, really sad. So most people know her as the youngest of 7 children, but she's the youngest of 9 children, just 7 that were survived. And I think that all 7 of those might still be survived. Maybe 1 or 2 of them have passed away by now, because they're probably mostly in their 70s, maybe late 70s, even for the oldest. Anyway, I wanted to share with you that Pete Hegseth invented a new word. This is the word. Are you ready? It's hilarious. And I do need to wrap up in a couple of minutes, so I'll have to speed through all of my notes. Pete Hegseth invented this word, grumblers. You know what a grumbler is, Annabise? I just think it's hilarious. It sounds like something that the Trumpster fire would make up. A grumbler is somebody who grumbles, right? So there's a bunch of grumblers. They're all grumbling about the government. OMG. OMG. So there are some really good documentaries that I've been finding on my Roku, on the Peacock. What is it called? The channel, the Peacock channel. There's a 3-part series called Epstein's Shadow, and it's about Maxwell. It was very illuminating. There's a lot of documentaries about both of them, about Maxwell and about little E, but most of them cost money. Like, you have to like upgrade your subscription, which is annoying. I'm not going to do that unless I have to, right? So yeah, that granting of the immunity to little E's co-conspirators was a nasty detail that Alex Acosta put into that paperwork. Granting immunity for all of the co-conspirators. That's twisted. Like, that man should be in jail, Alex Acosta. And he was married and had little girls. I mean, maybe he still is. What a sick effing bastard. Okay. So What else? What else? I think that's kind of most of it right there. So the gang stalking is something that I mentioned yesterday. I hadn't talked about that in a long time. Virginia Giuffre was certainly being gang stalked for probably all of her life after she cut ties with, or tried to cut ties with, Ghislaine and Little E. So when she did that, it was when she was sent to Thailand to bring back a specific Thai girl that was, I think, 14 years old. And I want to say Virginia was about 19 by then. And that's when she met her husband in Thailand. And they had a whirlwind romance. They got married 10 days after the day that they met. They'd been married for 22 years. That's the one that she was going through a divorce with. Oh, I found out too that the ranch where she was found unalive, yesterday I mentioned that the school bus hit the car that she was in at the end of her driveway when they were trying to turn off of the highway to go into her driveway. 40-acre ranch. Her and her husband had owned that for a while, so she had moved to that ranch due to the separation. And her husband, so they were still currently married, her estranged husband, I want to say his name is Rob Giuffre. He was a martial arts expert, and when he filed a restraining order against Virginia, so that's why she couldn't see her kids, because he included the kids in the restraining order against her. He alleges that she was the aggressor in the domestic violence. Of course, she alleges that he was the aggressor in the domestic violence, and that he may have had friends in law enforcement, which is maybe how he got away with getting a restraining order against her and getting her visitation with her children prevented. So she was going through the court process of trying to win custody of her kids and trying to get that restraining order issue straightened out. It's hard to know what's true with all of that. Of course, there can be women that are the aggressors, like Gabby Petito, right? Primarily, sorry, whacked the mic. Primarily, the men are the aggressors in domestic violence situations. Of course, not always, but almost always. It's like over 95% of the time. And then Virginia was a pretty small person, and her estranged husband was very bulky and hulky. So the kids are 19, 16, and 15. And what else did I want to add? Some of the information that I've been picking up here and there and everywhere. About the restraining order. Oh, the documentation, the documents. So it seems that there were law enforcement officials that went into Virginia's property after she was deceased and spent 10 to 12 hours gathering up evidence and removing it from the property. So I mentioned that yesterday, and how that makes me think that there are probably documents, probably a lot of court documents. Again, she'd been fighting for justice against her abusers for all of her adult life. So over 20 years. And, she was married for 22 years. Her husband was how she escaped from being trafficked. And so for the entire marriage, she was hiring lawyers and trying to move forward with justice, and really organizing to get to make the world safer for other kids so that they weren't getting trafficked. So it wasn't just about her and her own protection. It was about trying to make the world a better place. So she made her charitable organization, and I don't have the name of it off the top of my head. I don't think I have it in my notes. Anyway, her charity is to help extinguish, basically, to rid the world of trafficking minors. Of course, that's a lofty goal, but every person that can be rescued or protected is worthwhile, right? Every single one. So when Ghislaine's father, Robert Maxwell, fell out of his yacht, she ran to the scene as quickly as she could and was extremely traumatized. And he was only missing at that point. I think they found his remains, but I'm not even 100% sure. I didn't have a chance to look that up to be sure. But at that point, he was only missing. And there's footage of her coming to the scene, and she is so emotional. It is said that she went into the yacht and shredded specific documents. So, of course, she denies that. But for her to be so overwhelmed with emotion when he's only missing, because, if somebody's just missing, you're going to hope that they're going to turn up alive. If they fell out of the yacht, maybe they're on Gilligan's Island somewhere and they just need to be rescued and discovered, right? But I think that documentation, I mean, you have to have documents for court cases, and Virginia had a lot of documents and a lot of court cases. She was pursuing justice still. She had active court cases. So it's looking to me more and more suspicious that what happened to her is pretty much what happened to little E and pretty much what happened to Ghislaine's father. And with little E and Ghislaine's father, it appears to be people pretty high up. We'll just put it that way. And I should go ahead and wrap up. And yes, Anna Bees says, I remember him. Wasn't he a cult leader? Yeah, that guy that I mentioned, Warren Jeffs. Yes, he was a cult leader. Really creepy. I hate it when that happens. I agree. Alex Acosta should be rotting in prison. He's really disgusting. He's really disgusting. So is Bill Clinton. I mean, like you said a few comments back, it's not just the right wing at all. I mean, anybody who's involved in that kind of crap should go down, in my opinion. And whether they're male or female, whether they're Democrat, Republican, I don't care. I just don't want to see people getting away with that kind of crap. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. So, love and light, thanks for being here, girlfriend. I'm so glad you got your bracelet. And I'm wearing a couple of the bracelets that I made the same time that I made the one that I made for you, or that you won. So there's this one that's like, I think it's citrine. No, not citrine, carnelian. So it's like different shades of carnelian, like almost clear, and then more of like the reddish. And then this one, I don't even know what this stone is, but you know what? I'm thinking it's maybe the same stone as this blue one, but just different colors, because the stratification is very similar. Interesting. But yeah, I know that this one has citrine in it. I love citrine. And then these bigger ones are kind of like a light green. But then let me show the blue next to the green again so that we can try to figure out what they are. And yeah, I know you can use an app that will tell you if you just like look at it through your phone. So even though they're very different colors, the stratifications are so similar that I'm thinking that that's the same stone. That blue and then that green. What do you think? Sorry if it's out of focus. There, is that better? Let me turn that one over because it's really different from one side to the other side. It's way cool. All right, enough playing with my jewelry. Thanks for watching, you guys. Um, love and light. Have a really good afternoon, and I will see you tomorrow. Hopefully, I'll find my phone and my brain. They're probably on a shelf together, sitting right next to each other, right? That drives me nuts when I find my phone and I just like set it down on some random shelf. That's usually what happens when I can't find it. Or it's in my purse, you know. It could be in my purse. And the other place is like somewhere, you know, under the blankets on the couch or behind the couch or in the couch cushions. I looked all those places. Who the F knows? Fred Field. All right, you guys have a lovely day. Thank you so much for joining me. And I just hope that you guys are doing well and that you're seeking truth and loving life and taking really good care of yourselves. How's your knee, Anna B? If you want to answer real quick, is it recovering well? Are you out of pain? Are you out of the difficulty part, hopefully? Because, yeah, you've probably got 5 weeks to go, right? Wasn't it just about a week ago? But I'm glad that it's doing well. And again, you guys are the greatest. Thanks so much for being here. And hopefully see you mañana. Have a lovely rest of your day. And drink your water, eat your veggies, and I'll try to do the same. Oh, you start physical therapy tomorrow. Awesome.